So recently I decided to get back into the MCU. I haven't touched it since Endgame came out, and even then it was like a year after it came out that I saw it. And a part of me thought that Endgame was a worthy finale with nowhere to really go afterwards. Of course, with this being Marvel Comics and also Hollywood, we couldn't not get some kind of continuation of pretty much every story left hanging after Thanos got dusted. And what better way to start things off than by dipping my toes into Phase 4, the one that everyone seems to love to hate. The first entry in Phase 4 was the highly praised Wandavision, and I gotta say, I'm actually pretty surprised with how much I liked it. I enjoyed the set design, I enjoyed the costumes, and of course I was very impressed by how they were able to take all of the visual motifs of sitcoms throughout the decades and seamlessly weave them into the plot of the story. But most can agree that the runaway hit of the show was without a doubt Agatha Harkness. Agatha is hilarious. Definitely one of the top tier villains in the MCU in my opinion. Thanks in no small part to Kathryn Hahn absolutely knocking it out of the park.
Bravo!
Even if she doesn't have some great big plan to take over the world or destroy all life in the universe, her charm, no pun intended, really made her stand out. It's no wonder that they're making a new show based solely around her. However, given how many times the show has been delayed or renamed, I don't expect it to come out anytime soon. I mean, if you ask me, they could save us a lot of trouble by just having her be on the Thunderbolts. But even as much as I liked the show and how much I thought Agnes/Agatha was very fun, there was one little part of it all that I kinda had a gripe with. You see, the big appeal for Agatha Harkness is that she starts off from being a nosy neighbor to being a snoopy soothsayer. She is a twist villain, a trope that we all thought that Disney had done away with quite some time ago.
What a twist!
But twist villains are rife within comic books, to the point where it's very rare for any superhero worth their salt to go through their career without someone revealing to them that they were in fact behind some sort of evil, conniving plan the whole time. But to me, if you want your story to have a twist villain, you also got to include a key component in order for it to truly and properly land. And because both the heroine and villainess are witches, this gives me a chance to talk about one of my all-time favorite of Grimm's fairy tales, Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel, of course, get lost in the woods and are then found by the evil witch who tries to eat them. But along the way, they leave a trail of breadcrumbs in order to find their way back home. And this is the key component I mentioned earlier. You have to have some kind of trail that leads back to the beginning, so that even if people don't see it coming the first time, upon subsequent viewing, people can look back at your twist and go, oh, now I see how it got here.
That's kind of the point, like a clue that will later make you go, oh, that's what he meant.
You need little tiny crumbs of catharsis. During the Agatha All Along song, we sort of see these little glimpses of her doing things behind the scenes, but these were all ad hoc. Until then, we only know her as a minor character, an unlucky townswoman who is charged with being Wanda's best friend. And so if there's one thing that I had to change about WandaVision, it would be this. Have some kind of small, seemingly insignificant at first plot beat that would set up for Agatha's big reveal without giving the game away. And thankfully, in the original show, after she reveals herself to be a witch, we are treated to a nice, big, fat, juicy info dump about both her and Wanda's respective pasts. In a funny way, Agatha pulls a not-so-subtle
You and I are not so different.
as she walks with Wanda through her own memories. So why not use this to our advantage? Anyway, without further ado, here's how I would fix this. So, halfway through the show, we start to get an idea of what's really going on outside of the fake town of Westview, or rather the fake version that Wanda has constructed. We get to see Sword, we get to see Monica Rambeau, we get to see Jimmy Woo, we get to see Kat Dennings' character from Thor, and we get to see them gather together. Something that I actually really like seeing, because part of what made the MCU so interesting is that you get to see all of these characters develop relationships from across movies. Anyway, while trying to figure out what the heck is going on, one of the two, let's say Dennings, does a little bit of digging into the history of Westview and discovers something rather interesting about its past. Sometime between the late 16 to early 1700s, there were a series of witch trials in central New Jersey upon what is now present-day Westview that were held in order to capture and kill a local legend known only as the Scarlet Witch. This ultimately led to the death of nearly a dozen different women, and that's really basically it. So what purpose would this scene serve? Well, first of all, it helps add to both the mystique of the town of Westview, as well as to who or what the Scarlet Witch is. Obviously, we know it's Wanda, but now we're given a new angle on her origin, and so now we're reinforcing the fun that lies in the journey from point A to point C.
I'm invested.
The second thing is that we now made Agatha's origin story that much more interesting, because in the original show, there is no scene involving witches being confronted by angry townsfolk. Sure, there was a witch trial, but it was a trial among witches, and it was Agatha who escaped them. It was Agatha all along. Also, this would tie into the theme of not being able to trust one's neighbors or community, as there would now be a stronger parallel between the idea of a witch trial and other plot elements within the show, such as there being a neighborhood watch,
Norm here's a communist,
and an advanced spy and security network that hunts dangerous elements such as Wanda Maximoff herself. The 60s episode to me reminded me a lot of The Twilight Zone, particularly the episode The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, where aliens are able to convince a bunch of humans to turn on their neighbors due to unexplained electrical phenomena. Wanda herself is from a country that likely had a tumultuous relationship within the USSR during its existence. And as we all know, the Soviets were notorious for using distrust among civilians in order to sow paranoia and thus break solidarity against the dictatorial rule of Stalin, whose one-party rule micromanaged the lives of all who lived under it. Finally, this would also be a fun nod and reference to an actual real-life historical event. You may be more familiar with the Salem witch trials, but have you heard of the Mount Holly witch trials? They occurred in the town of Mount Holly, New Jersey in the year 1730. Mere 40 years after the infamous ones in Salem. We only have an anonymous account of these trials via a news article supposedly written by founding father Benjamin Franklin, a notorious prankster who enjoyed making fun of superstitious people.
Ben Franklin, you're really kind of a sleazebag.
On top of that, if the people at Sword are familiar with the concept of the Scarlet Witch, even if it is sort of a mythologized version of it, passed along through history like a game of telephone, that can help create further conflict between the people at Sword and Wanda. You can even have the mistrust and confusion work in several directions. For example, director Hayward doesn't believe in the idea of witches, Kat Dennings does believe in witches and that Wanda is her, Monica Rambeau probably does believe that Wanda is a witch of some kind, but isn't the Scarlet Witch, because she's actually gotten a chance to know the real her and doesn't think that she might be like that. Vision not knowing what to believe because he's a robot. All of this would create a big smoky cloud of confusion that would get blown away as the story progresses. And if there's anything witches like, it's big smoky clouds. So there you have it, the one fix that I would make to an otherwise pretty decent Marvel television show. Let me know what you think. Does my addition make the story better for you? Would you have changed something else? More importantly, which of the fake theme songs in the show were your favorite? My choice would be either the 90s one because that's the kind of show I grew up with, but I also really loved how the 2000s one ended with "Created by Wanda Maximoff" on the final title card. That was just chef's kiss right there. If you did enjoy this and want to see more, feel free to check out my Patreon. Follow me on Twitter at JohnBradfordYT. And until next time, this is Jay Brad, signing out.